experience of life in recorded history has been very, very colorful, very constantly varying from suffering to enjoyment, travesty and fortune. The only thing that we can say is constant is that everything is unpredictable. And this is a result of the spiritual residue created by ancient man. We inherit life from a very specific lens, a very specific perspective that's ingrained in our minds from a young age. And that perspective has been evolving for as long as humanity knew how to speak. And so the result of all this confusion is an experience that's unpredictable and causes the human organism to experience an unnatural level of stress. And so this descent of man was very visible to the wise as it was happening, but the masses were only concerned with their immediate survival. They couldn't see the big picture. And so man went on a quest to satisfy his desire for safety and stability, each one on a personal level, each one only looking out for their immediate interests, not understanding the importance of the collective, not realizing that we are all part of something bigger. Each of us a branch of a very big tree. And if the trunk of the tree is not properly attached to the ground, if the life force is not coming through to humanity as a whole, then each individual branch will suffer. Each individual branch will receive less life, less light. And this is exactly what happened to humanity. The amount of awareness, intelligence about the true nature of life that's being given over from generation to generation has diminished to, we might say, less than nothing. Because the things that are being given over are mostly toxic to the real beliefs of how life really works. And so this descent was even more pronounced after the period where prophecy was taken from humanity. As long as there was prophecy, there was a channel of truth that was available to those who seek it. But when the world descended into even more chaos, the human organism could no longer organize itself to feel the way that a prophet is supposed to feel in order to gain access to the divine message, to the divine perspective, to seeing life for what it was meant to be, to feel the bliss, the natural joy that emanates from the human heart when it is not disturbed by calamity and suffering. And so humanity descended even deeper into the darkness, even deeper into the confusion, even deeper into the pursuit of meaningless things. Because the nature of man, as long as he hasn't found his true source, his true nature, is to be in restless pursuit. And that's in order to create the energy so that we can find the teachings, we can find the intelligence that will allow us to realize ourselves. But instead, humanity has been using that restless pursuit to pursue things that are completely meaningless. The only importance is created between the members of humanity by agreement. And it's not based on anything real in nature. So all these different channels where human energy is being wasted are causing humanity to become more and more ignorant of their real nature, to become more and more distant of creating an environment where their true nature will thrive, where their true nature will become filled with the natural joy of life. And so this is the time of the Megillah. This is the time of the Nes Purim, the time where prophecy is ending. And therefore, Chazal teach us, where do we find Esther in the Torah Shebechsav, in the Chamish Chimshei Torah? We find it in the pasuk V'nochi haster aster esponai be'esahu. I am going to hide within the hiding. What does it mean to hide within the hiding? The Torah Shebechsav, the written tradition, is one garment to dress up the divine power that runs the world. So the Torah doesn't give it away. The Torah doesn't make it easy to understand the message. And so it dresses up the formless in a form that is difficult to recognize, difficult to find the true face of what's being shown, what's being revealed. But then came the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it hid the simplicity of the Torah Shebechsav. It made finding the divine message so much more complicated. If before one can go through the entire Torah in less than a week, now it would take years. And this is because humanity was creating more and more complex structures, more and more complex laws, and the human mind started to become accustomed to more information. And so now, in order to create a distraction within which is found a message, it needs to be more complex. It needs to be a much bigger task. And so the hidden became even more hidden. The hidden, which is the nature of prophecy, that was only available to a select few that arrived at the levels where the secrets were revealed to them, now became completely lost from humanity. And so now we have a situation where humanity is descending into a very deep darkness. And this was very obvious to those who had the eyes to see. This was not something that happened suddenly. It happened very gradually, over decades. over centuries, over millennia. Humanity became more and more enslaved to false ideas, more and more ingrained in the mentality of slaves, the mentality of those who serve and serve, and they don't even know what, why, or who they're serving. And yet, everything that happens to humanity was already created within their nature. Within their organs is already designed every possible maneuver that a human being can create, every possible spirit that can animate a human body, and the response of the body, the response of the spiritual to that movement. And everything was designed to perfection in order to perfect us so that we can participate in our eternal destiny of unification with the intelligence that designed all. So that we can realize the true nature of our experience while we were in the body, while we had the ability to act, while we had the ability to make a difference. And so we have a day of celebration. We are celebrating the fact that nothing could possibly happen to a human being that is not there to help him and to heal him, because that's how reality was designed by the one who is kindest of all. So on Purim, we drink until we can no longer tell the difference between good and evil. This is not simply a state that we're in on Purim. This drunkenness is the state humanity has been in ever since we've lost prophecy. Humanity lost their ability to tell good from evil. Humanity lost the ability to control its own behaviors so that we don't cause damage to ourselves and to the ones we love. And so we dress up as different characters, as different personalities, as different creatures that we are not, because this is the state of humanity. Humanity is dressed up in costumes. One thinks he's an accountant, the other thinks he's a doctor, the other thinks he's a policeman. They've all forgotten what it means to be the most advanced and complex species the universe has ever seen, as far as we know. And so they haven't realized the basic nature of the experience, and yet they're dressed in a costume, they're playing a role. Humanity will only be able to fully realize their own nature when prophecy returns. But for prophecy to return, we need to have an environment where a human being can grow up and experience life from the perspective of the Creator. This means that we have to learn how to minimize human suffering, to increase the natural joy within the human heart, the natural desire to experience the adventure of life, the natural curiosity to investigate and discover the nature of self, the nature of the environment we live in, the nature of the relationships that we can create while we're here. And so this miracle of Purim represents the ultimate miracle of the final redemption. This is why even after the final redemption, we're going to continue to celebrate this madness, the madness that has taken over humanity. We're celebrating it because this is what's going to lead us to our ultimate glory. This is what's going to ultimately make us recognize how foolish we've behaved. This is what's going to give us the energy to organize and to come together and to make things different. And so on a day like Purim is a day of reflection. It's a day of realization. It's a day of removing judgment. Whoever asks for something on Purim, he receives. There's no judgment. Because how can we judge someone who lives in a world that doesn't offer the truth? If the truth is not on the menu, how can we blame them for buying into a lie? And so each one of us has to put up with different lies, with different pieces of information, different pieces of beliefs that are not aligned with our true nature. And so from the realization of Purim comes complete forgiveness. From the realization of Purim comes the ultimate unity, where we don't any longer distinguish the good from the evil, because we don't classify the evil as evil any longer. There's healthy and there's unhealthy. There's one who is realized and there's one that has the potential to realize. All of them in the same struggle. All of them caught in the net of the mistakes of previous generations. Mistakes that live in our awareness, unless we learn to go deeper, unless we return to our source, to the stillness within our own nature, so that we can rediscover what it means to be us. So I want to wish all of you a very happy and enlightening Purim. May this Purim bring about a redemption to our hearts individually, and the redemption to the collective through the final redemption, the redemption we've all been waiting for, the redemption that's going to redeem humanity from their insanity, so that we can all unite, so that we can all realize our true purpose and rejoice together. May it happen soon.